Okay, my name is Bolahon Olojede. I'm a finance expert. That's what I've done for some 30-something odd years of my life. Accounting, finance, banking, and things along that line all the while. Of course, I had a bit in the media space, but not as a media person, but as a contributor to citizens' education in that space. Okay, economics is a very powerful part of governance. If the economy is not right, there is bound to be elements of agitation in the society. And that is not just a Nigerian affair. Even the recent American election was all around economics. The belief that a particular president, when he was president, the economy was better. Maybe it's a perception, maybe it is not, but people feel so. And because they felt so, they voted massively for that candidate. The same thing is what you have in Nigeria and agitation. The level of inflation that we have is a bit too harsh. We've not seen anything like this for decades now. So people are bound to complain, and that has puts a pressure on poverty issues in Nigeria, because what it could mean is that as inflation is high, people's disposable income starts to shrink, so they are not able to consume as they're supposed to consume. If they're not able to consume, it will affect producers, because what it means is that the producers are producing, nobody is buying, or nobody is able to buy as they should buy. So it will not only affect individuals, it will also affect companies. And we have seen how that has played out over the last few years. I'm not sure how agitation will do it. I think we need to change we should agitate, but maybe it's the style of agitation that needs to change. You see, the agitation of people getting on the road to protest eventually has not been shown to yield the right level of result. And that is because there are too many interests that are, people have their own agenda. So even when there is a honest intention to make known the unhappiness of the people to the government, all these other interests will come into that space for their own agenda, and they will disrupt things, and it will even be negative. We've seen how that has played out in some of the protests in the past. And when you ask yourself today, fundamentally, if those issues that were being fought against in those protests really changed, the answers are going to come up with might not, so did police brutality even stop? I doubt that it stopped. There was a more recent one. How has that affected inflation? In fact, inflation numbers have gone further up after that. So there is a need to change the way we approach agitation. We must agitate, but those open street affairs are not yielding results. The international folks are busy with their own problems. They are busy with their own problems. Of course, there have been protests, even internationally. There was a cost of living crisis after COVID-19, which saw inflation numbers, even in the developed world, being very horrible. But fortunately for them, they have been able to navigate the most challenging part of those curves, and they are in a better position now. So that's why you see Feds in America are beginning to cut rates. Before you can cut interest rate, it shows that your inflation has plateaued or has started to decline. In Nigeria, we are not there. You could see that even at the last NPR meeting, the CBN increased rate further. When you increase rate, it is difficult for people to borrow money. Interest rates are very high in the economy and all of that. But the guy doesn't have an option because inflation has continued to go up. You know, and it's a cacophony of several issues. But it is not a hopeless situation. That is the way I say it. It's not a hopeless situation that we have. Two important policies have changed the entire scene. One is the fuel subsidy removal, and the other one is the unification of the exchange rate. The second one aggravated the situation of the first one because the product in question is imported. So when you do something to a product that is imported, when your exchange rate is volatile, and the product is imported, is a double whammy for that product. And we have seen how that has played out with the price of fuel. With the price of fuel up, so are several other prices within the economy. So energy cost is high. The more important one, food. Food inflation is the highest inflation. If you want to really analyze inflation, the best thing is to decompose that headline inflation figure and see what are the things that are there. And the number one, the clear leader, is food inflation. As a matter of fact, I always say, if you solve food inflation today, you will have solved probably 50% of the problem that is on the table. I'm not saying that it's plain vanilla, that you can just snap your finger and solve food inflation. I'm just saying if you're able to do that, and we're a blessed country, to be honest with you, what does it take to solve food inflation? Make the food available. And let the centers of production be able to connect to the centers of consumption. For food that are perishable, there should be storage facilities that could preserve them. If we're able to, you know, Nigeria is a very interesting country. Because all these things I'm saying, the decision makers are also aware of them. I remember vividly the July 2023 speech by the president. He highlighted all these things. He spoke about 500,000 hectares of land that will be put to cultivation. He spoke about linking up rural areas with the urban centers, you know, all those roads that connect farmland. He spoke about that. He spoke about making inputs available, fertilizers, seedlings, and all those things. These are all things that will make the food abundant. But the question we will be asking today is, how far have we gone with those initiatives? Did they remain just on paper and speech? Well, partners who have things to also gain from Nigeria. Because you see, in the space of international politics and even economy, it is the interest is the number one thing. So when America is going to do, anything with you, America also want to know, okay, what is the need for me? Why should I do it for you instead of that other guy? So it is my interest that I put forward. And if my interest is taken care of, then I can also consider your own interest. In that wise, we've seen this country consider countries like China. Everybody will remember the issues of currency swap some years ago, when Nigeria was considering China as an alternative currency. Rather than going from dollar to the yuan, we're saying let's go straight to yuan and be able to exchange, the China currency for our trade. After all, a lot of our importation come from China. China, on the flip side, also has interest. China is trying to expand its growth. Growth has slowed down. There was a time China was on double-digit growth consistently for decades, maybe for over 10 years, But after a while, growth started to slow down. When growth is slowing down, one of the solutions to that is to reach out, to look at other places where you can get growth. So you have Chinese institutions who have come into places like Nigeria, not just Nigeria, actually many parts of Africa, and are producing, they are providing infrastructure. What are they doing? When I will loan you money to develop your infrastructure, and when I'm loaning you that money, it's not as if I'm providing you cash. I'm not providing you cash. I'm providing you Chinese equipment, Chinese steel, Chinese this. I bring it to your country. I even bring Chinese people to come and do the installation. But at the end of the day, you pay me. So that is a win-win kind of situation. And those are the kind of things that drive international politics. So a partner like China is very critical. If you look at our imports today, a chunk of it comes from China. Economic activity, I can't zero in on what could be the references, but there are issues around bills now. For example, you have the ongoing discussions around the tax bills, four of them, heated argument. That is an excellent piece of work that those guys have delivered. People tend to look at public policy from a perfection perspective. I said that document is excellent. I didn't say it is perfect. It is not perfect. In the space of public policy, there are no perfect policies. It doesn't exist. If you give Nigeria power today, let's say there is power from the grid to every Nigerian today, what do you think will happen to the generator businesses? What will happen to all the artisans who were trained to repair generators? They are automatically out of job. The generator companies will be on the decline. Does it mean electricity is not good? No, it is good. Even if you give us water, let's say there's potable water in Lagos, what will happen to all those, in quotes, pure water companies? They are all dead. If everybody can turn their taps today and water will come out. So the nature of public policy is not that it will impact every segment of the economy positively. Rather, it is that it will impact the most. It will bring more benefits to the most people. And it is on that basis that you do public policies. So these same taxes, tax bills as well, it's not going to be perfect for every segment and every stakeholder. No. But will it deliver more benefits to more people? And my answer is yes. That is why I describe it as an excellent piece of work. Well, I won't say foreigners are responsible for our economic crisis. I would say we are responsible. However, there are several questions that are hanging in the air there. One of it has to do with our debt profile. And some of these debt holders are multinational. It may actually be wrong to call them as to say they belong to a particular country. But we know who are the domineering forces in some of these institutions. When somebody says, I'm going to lend you money, and that money is for you to go and distribute in the market, or I'm going to, say your cash, what do you call that program? All those cash transfer programs, for example. How effective has cash transfer programs been in Nigeria? Where is the database that is being used? There are databases, even the World Bank presented certain data. The question is not whether there is a database, it is whether those databases are being validated independently. And guess what? If we want to validate it, we can do it. These people, beneficiaries, are human beings, they live in a place. And we can get independent people to say, who are the real beneficiaries of this money that we are just sharing? But we have not done much of that. I've seen reports on loans. There was a loan that was procured to revamp a particular government enterprise. When I saw the report of the loan provider about that loan, it described it as a failure. So, and I asked myself, so even as a loan provider, did you show due diligence? Because, I mean, if I'm providing a loan, I'm interested in how that loan will be repaid back to me. So I'm concerned about the underlying project that the loan is going to be applied to. But we have a case in which people give you a loan, they advise you on where to put this loan, and they don't care how that is done. And then at the end of the day, no project is delivered, money is spent, and I have to still pay you back. I'm being careful about naming specific countries, but those things are there. When people say, oh, you are owing this other country too much, okay, I can mention China. There have been a lot of stories about how we seem to be borrowing from China. And guess what? In my opinion, the monies we borrowed from China have delivered more projects than the years of borrowing from the West. We may have our own issues about, whether it was more costly or not, but the truth is there's a Lagos-Ibadan train on that place today. It is there. There is an Abuja-Kaduna train. It exists. It is not a mirage. So most of those I even remember that the Ikorodu Road in Lagos was originally done by Chinese firm. Wow. Yes, I think that was when it was redone by Fashola then. It was a Chinese company, ECC or something like that. So we are seeing the product of those loans. It's different from those loans that some other part of the world just give you, and you can't say this is how the loan itself was applied. When it comes to loans, I am more disposed to the Orient, to the Chinas of this world, than to the West. I do not think that the West care enough about how those money are expended. I don't think so. As a matter of fact, they are now fighting. Some of the issues, some of the negative reports about Chinese loan are emanating from the West because they want to discourage you from going towards that direction. They see you as, these Chinese people are stealing my customer. But it's not that way. It's not that way. In many sectors, manufacturing, the Indians are huge in manufacturing in Nigeria. So when you go to, I don't want to start naming companies, but you will see how the Chinese have come in. I mean, the Indians, some of the very large companies in Nigeria are originally from India, and they are here to stay, and be here for long. I think it's been positive in a way, in the sense that, of course, they are employers. There is no doubt about that, and issues around whether there is labor exploitation. I'm not going to blame a foreigner for labor exploitation. I'm going to blame the country in itself. He has a duty to ensure that his people are properly treated. But the fact that they don't just pack their load and run away like the West will do. As a matter of fact, some of the companies that the West abandoned, Indians took over. Some of the in certain instances, while they cannot survive, the Western companies are not competitive enough. The Indian firms have been able to come and operate at a lower cost and still deliver the same product, to the country. Russia is tricky. If you do business with Russia, you might be incurring the wrath of another powerful wing of the world, and it's something to be careful of, when you are in Nigeria. There are other bolder countries who could say, South Africa has been bolder with its relationship with Russia. But Nigeria, we have to watch it. political, I think there are lessons, there are huge lessons from the American system. So for politically, I would like us to, we have a lot to learn from the very rich history of democracy in America. It is something that we have tried to copy, which we have copied wrongly in most of the instances. But what will also surprise you is that some of what we're facing right now, that same democracy faced it. When some people were talking about delegate election the other time, people did not know that about 100 years ago, all those same corruption that you see with delegate election were in America as well. Yeah. We also saw in America a presidential candidate who had to decamp to go and set up another party so that he can contest on the platform of that other party in the US. So some of those things have been there, but they didn't abandon it. They persevere and continue to reform. That is very important. They were reforming the system, and they have gotten to where they are today, where I remember in the last administration of Trump, when he wanted their own equivalent of the CBN governor to go in one direction, the guy would say, no, I'm not going there. This is where I'm going. And there's nothing the man can do. You know, strong institutions where people can look in the face of the president and say, no, I'm not going there. And the media, what makes the media beautiful is how free media could be. That is not to say that there shouldn't be, that everything should just be allowed to run, anyhow. There must be certain checks and balances, but by and large, the media should be free. And I believe that the West, as championed by America, remains a leading country when it comes to free press across the world. They have their own challenges. They could sell to you a narrative because it's a big narrative from certain quarters, which may not necessarily be a balanced narrative. But then, it is the duty of Nigeria, apart from looking up to all this nation, to also consider the peculiarities of its own environment in adopting something. You see, all this copy and paste are not exactly working for us. Let's take bits and pieces of the good stuff and then infuse it with some originality of our own based on the peculiarities of our country. And that might just work better for us. I think for China, it is positive. For Russia, I don't think there is much of a relationship there. And the reason is clear. You cannot really, when you are really friendly to Russia, you're going to be incurring the wrath of America. I don't think America gives a hoot about us. The China that I said is probably more friendly, it's also not about us. It's about them. But because they tend to have learned how to operate without undue interference with countries that they do things with, I feel more comfortable with, with them, provided our people will also continue to live up to the expectation of patriotism that is expected of those things. Because when China is dealing with you, China is thinking 20 years, is thinking 50 years. A situation in which our people are thinking 4 years will always be a major problem in getting the best out of those relationships. So it's a cautious thing, but I think Americans don't give a hoot, and that we can actually get more from China if we manage those relationships better. Economic,
political, and security development.
Of course, there have been economic issues between those parties. Number one, because China, as a matter of fact, has remained a major source of our imports. All those trade things that we do, most of them are coming from China because it's a huge manufacturing hub anyway. Um, America is also there. Some of the borrowings that we do here and there, of course, those authorities we borrow from have very strong influence, strong American influence, and we've seen that also play out in the economic space. Politically, America tend to want to have an input in the politics of in geopolitics generally. I'm not so sure of how strongly they have shown interest in Nigeria in recent times, maybe in the past 3 4 years. But it could still be argued that all the issues around the election period and all the rest of it, that they had their own hands, unseen hand, playing out in many ways that we probably cannot see, that are not very glaring. In security terms, because we don't manufacture arms in Nigeria, of course, we definitely have been dealing with America, and I don't think we will touch Russia. There's also a possibility that some things are happening with China. Most security related issues are coded, treated in confidence, even in America, you know. So we may never know the extent, but everybody will remember things around. What's the name of that fighter that we bought from America in the days of Buhari, which shows um, some sort of security cooperation between Nigeria and America. Don't also forget that a few years ago, America approved the largest consulate to be built by the ocean in Nigeria. That is not just about visas. That is also a huge. That also has a huge security implications. That's a tough question. I don't like military bases, foreign military bases coming to Nigeria. In all those places where they have been, it has been trouble in many instances. But there has also been places where it has not been trouble. America even has a military base because some people tend to think it's only in developing countries that they no. America has a huge military base in Germany, extensive one that has been there probably since Second World War. You know, so it's a tricky thing, and if I have my way, I would not want a foreign country having a military base within the domains of my country. But if we think we can handle it, it might be worth it. I still remember how America came into Nigeria to come and rescue an American some a couple of years ago that was kidnapped. You know, meanwhile, in doing that assignment, they must have leveraged on their Nigerian counterpart as well. But there are many Nigerians in captivity that you know. Anyway, kudos to our military men. I don't want to. I want to be careful how I speak to that. I like to get a balanced view, so I follow many people, and for example, I'm not very active on Twitter, but that doesn't mean I don't consume Twitter information. So, and I like to get them from various sources, including people I don't like. I don't like them, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to know what their perspectives are about issues. So I consume on social media, a little bit on TV. I don't have much time to watch the TV, so most of what I consume is on social media, and of course newspapers and some stations. some online stations as well. I think Africa needs to do more with Africans. Nigerians, for example, probably know more about UK and US than they know about Cotonou or Ghana. We need to know ourselves. We need to do more business with ourselves. Africa in itself is also beautiful. When a typical Nigerian is talking about vacation, other African countries, maybe apart from South Africa, do not typically cross their mind. Meanwhile, Africa is beautiful. So I would love a situation in which Africa once again becomes a central focus of the foreign policy of Nigeria and how we can, muster support across Africa to grow Africa. Nobody is coming from outside of Africa to transform Africa. It is Africans that will build Africa.